This happened back in late spring, so not super long ago. My friend Jake and I decided to take a little break from everything and rented a small cabin out near Lake Pinecrest. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that area, but it's tucked away in a lot of thick woods and is pretty secluded. The cabin itself was nothing fancy. Wood stove, a couple of cots, and no cell service. Just peace and quiet, which at the time sounded amazing. We weren't really expecting anything, just a cheap place to hang out, fish, drink a few beers, and be off the grid for a bit. That was the idea anyway. So we got there Friday afternoon and settled in. The first night was fine, for the most part, except for one thing. We just finished eating and were sitting around the tiny living room area. I was rinsing out some pans when I looked up at this little kitchen window, and there were these two red dots just out there in the dark at eye level. I figured it was probably some kind of animal. Jake said raccoon, maybe a deer. But the weird part was that they didn't move. Not even a twitch. They just stayed there, locked in place. No blinking, no bobbing, no nothing. And I don't know, something about it gave me the worst kind of feeling. My skin was crawling. Eventually they disappeared, like they didn't blink out or walk away. They just weren't there anymore. We chalked it up to animal eyes reflecting something. That's what we told ourselves, and I tried not to dwell on it. That night I heard stuff, though. A couple times I sat straight up in my sleeping bag because something scraped the back wall of the cabin. Other times it was like short, sharp steps crunching the leaves just outside. Jake said it was the wind, or maybe a stray dog. And sure, maybe it was. The next day we didn't talk about it much. We fished and just kind of tried to enjoy the trip. Still joked around though. Jake made a couple dumb horror movie references, and I was trying to play it cool. But I noticed he was checking the windows a lot more, so I wasn't the only one feeling weird. That night I was stretched out on the couch, flipping through this old paperback I found in a drawer, when I looked up and saw those red dots again. Different window this time, opposite side of the cabin, facing deeper into the woods. I didn't say anything right away, just kind of stared. They weren't like the eyes of a deer or anything else. They were dead still, like something just standing there. After a minute or two, I nudged Jake and pointed. He looked up and squinted at them, and then kind of chuckled. Said something like, I guess they're still around. But then we both heard it. Something walking through the brush. It was circling the cabin, and it stopped just outside the back door. I don't know how long we sat there not talking, but it felt like a long time. I had my flashlight and I aimed it through the window, but I didn't see anything. The eyes were now gone and there was no sign of movement, just darkness and silence. Jake muttered something about deer again, but this time he didn't sound so sure. Anyway, nothing else happened that night. We didn't sleep much though. Now here's the part I still can't wrap my head around. Our last night, we were getting ready for bed. It was maybe 10:30, so not super late. And then out of nowhere, we hear this boom, loud and close. It sounded like a shotgun had gone off inside the cabin. It rattled the windows and shook the walls. We stood there staring at each other dumbfounded. Neither of us owns a gun. We searched the whole place when we arrived. It's just one room, a closet, and a kitchen nook. That's it. There was no way anyone could have been in there beside us. We checked again just to be sure, tore the place apart. There was nothing inside and nothing outside. No sign of anything fired, no shells. But then after a few minutes, it happened again. Another shotgun blast, louder this time. This one came from the closet in the back room. I was still holding the flashlight, and when it went off, I swear I could feel the pressure shift, like the air cracked open for a second. I looked at Jake, he looked at me. We didn't say anything. We grabbed our stuff and left. Didn't even fully pack, just threw things in the back of the car and got out of there. I've tried looking into that cabin since. It wasn't listed on any haunted registry sites or whatever, and I couldn't find anything about it online aside from the booking info. I even reached out to the property manager under the pretense of wanting to stay again and asked casually if there'd ever been any gunshots reported or complaints about animals. They said no. Place has excellent reviews. I don't know what those red eyes were. I don't know what made those sounds. And I definitely don't know how to explain 2 separate shotgun blasts happening inside a cabin that had no guns in it, no one nearby, and no way in or out without making a sound. I've stayed in some weird places, but that's the only time I've ever just left. I rent a small house just outside of town. Nothing fancy. 1 story, quiet road. Last house before it turns into woods. I moved in about 5 months ago. I live alone. No pets, no roommates. The place is kind of old, but nothing that felt creepy at first. Just quiet and cheap, which is all I really cared about. For the first few months, everything was fine. Drafty windows, noisy pipes, the usual stuff. But about 2 weeks ago, something happened that I haven't been able to shake. I got out of the shower one morning, wiped the steam off the bathroom mirror, and saw handprints. 2 of them, bigger than mine. 1 higher up, 1 lower down. And they looked smeared, like someone had pressed their hands into the steam, and then dragged them down a little. I hadn't touched the mirror. No one else lives here. I just stood there staring at them for a few seconds, trying to make sense of it. Eventually, I wiped them off and tried to forget about it, but it stuck with me all day. I kept going back over it in my head, trying to think of some kind of explanation. A few days later, I was working from home, just sitting at the kitchen table, when I heard something fall in the bathroom. It was loud, like something heavy had hit the tile. I went to check, expecting maybe a shampoo bottle had tipped over, but everything was exactly where it should have been. Nothing had fallen. The weird part was that the bathroom door was wide open, and that door never stays open unless I latch it shut. I always do out of habit. That's what really threw me. Then I noticed the mirror was fogged up again, but I hadn't used the shower that day. I hadn't even run the water. That night I kept hearing soft noises, not loud enough to panic over, but weird, like light footsteps in the hallway. I got up to check more than once, but never saw anything. The next morning I went to make coffee and saw that the back door was unlocked. I lock that door every single night. I double check it before bed. It leads straight out to the trees behind the house. The deadbolt was still set, but the handle was turned to unlock. I don't know how that happens unless someone moved it. I tried not to let it get to me, but honestly it did. A few nights ago I woke up around 2:30 in the morning because I heard running water. Not dripping, but full pressure running. I got up half asleep and followed the sound to the bathroom. The faucet was on, blasting water into the sink. I turned it off and just stood there for a second, staring at the mirror. That's when I heard someone say my name, soft like a whisper right behind me. I turned around so fast, my stomach dropped. But there was no one there. I haven't mentioned it to the landlord. I keep trying to think logically. Maybe I'm stressed. Maybe I've been sleepwalking. I even looked up stuff like mold or carbon monoxide, but everything checks out. Nothing's out of place. But then I think about those handprints again, and I get that feeling in my chest all over. Last night I had this weird dream. Not exactly a nightmare, just unsettling. I was standing in the bathroom, but it looked different. Older, dingy. The tiles were cracked and the mirror had dark spots and streaks all over it. Everything looked wrong. I could barely see my reflection, but there was someone behind me. Not clear, just a tall, blurry figure standing still. I couldn't move. I felt like something heavy was pressing down on my chest. I couldn't even breathe. When I woke up, my bedroom door was wide open. I always close it at night. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But something about this house doesn't feel the same anymore. Every time I walk past a mirror, I pause, just for a second, because I keep thinking I might see something else. If anyone's had anything similar happen, or knows what the hell causes handprints to show up like that, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I just want to feel normal in my own space again. Last month, my girlfriend Lena and I stayed at a Hilton Garden Inn just outside of Albuquerque. We were there for a wedding. Nothing fancy or special about the place. Pretty standard hotel. You know, clean, modern, the kind of place where the lobby smells like citrus and everything's beige and granite. We got there on a Friday afternoon. Room 528, top floor, last one at the end of the hall. It was just a regular hotel room. 2 beds, TV, a desk, and a sliding closet. Towels folded up under the bathroom sink like they always do. Honestly, the kind of place where everything feels wiped down and kind of generic. At first, nothing weird at all. But I did notice something weird about the floor. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, just dead silent. No TVs on in the other rooms. No showers running. Not even doors closing. It was like we were the only ones up there. The first night, we got woken up around 1:30 by footsteps in the hallway. They were light and fast, like someone running, but not in a fun way. They were more frantic. Then I heard crying, soft at first. It sounded like a woman, maybe late 20s or older if I had to guess. Quiet sobs mixed in with the footsteps. The running stopped right outside our door. Then the crying stopped as well. I got out of bed and looked through the peephole. Hallway was empty. No one was walking away. No doors closing, just silence. When I turned around, Lena was sitting up. "You heard that too, right?" she said. I nodded in agreement, and we were both so spooked we left the light on for the rest of the night. Next morning, we got up early to meet some friends for brunch. When I went to grab our jackets from the closet, they weren't there. They were folded and sitting on the bed, neat and side by side, like someone had took the time to lay them out. Lena stared at them for a while, then asked, "That wasn't you, was it?" "Nope." We both remember hanging them up. We didn't talk about it much, just folded them again and put them on a chair. Maybe one of us did it without thinking, or the cleaning staff came in even though we hadn't asked. That was the best explanation we could come up with. That night, after the wedding, we got back to the room around 10 p.m. Everything looked exactly how we left it, but the atmosphere felt heavier. Not in a bad way, just thick, like the air was harder to breathe or something. The closet door was cracked open about 6 inches. Neither of us mentioned it, but I shut it all the way. It felt stuck like the track was warped. I had to push it harder than usual. We left the light on again after that. Sometime around 3 in the morning, I woke up. No sound this time, no footsteps, nothing. Just this weird feeling like something was there. I sat up and looked around. The closet door was open again, wider now, like someone had moved it. I checked inside. Our luggage was still there, but the jackets? They were back on the bed, folded, one on top of the other. I just stood there staring. The room was so quiet I could hear the fridge humming down the hall. We didn't sleep much after that, just waited for morning, packed early. Lena didn't say much and neither did I. While stacking the towels in the bathroom, I noticed the top one looked uneven. When I went to straighten it, I felt something underneath. A folded piece of paper, one of those Hilton notepad sheets. I thought maybe someone left a shopping list or something like that. But when I unfolded it, there was just 3 lines in small, neat handwriting. I tried to be quiet. I really did. I left everything the way I found it. Please forgive the noise. No name, no explanation, just that. I showed it to Lena. She stared for a minute and said, "Do we put it back?" We folded it, slid it back under the towels. Neither of us wanted to take it with us. We dropped the keys at the front desk without saying a word. The woman smiled and asked if everything was okay. Lena just said it was quiet. That part wasn't a lie. Since then, I've tried to find something online about room 528. There was nothing. No news, no stories. Just a normal room in a normal hotel. But something was left behind. Not just the note. The footsteps, the crying, the closet door not staying shut. It's like whatever was there didn't want to bother us. It just wanted to be remembered. And maybe that's the scariest part. This happened a few weeks ago. I've been sitting on it for a while now. Not because I'm scared or anything like that. Just I don't really know what to make of it. It was strange, and I figured I'd write it down in case anyone else has ever come across the same place. There were 4 of us. Me, Kyle, Rhea, and Marco. We're all seniors in high school, and we'd been hiking around Jefferson County for a while, mostly sticking to old trails. This time, we wandered deeper into Larkspur Woods than usual. There wasn't a real plan. We were just bored and had a long weekend, so we followed a deer path and kept going. A couple of hours off trail, we came across something we weren't expecting. A small house tucked between a ridge and a dense patch of pine. Not a cabin, not a shed, an actual house. 1 story, maybe 3 rooms total. The kind of place that probably shouldn't exist that deep in the woods. It was run down but intact. The front door had been torn off and was lying in the weeds. The outside was covered in moss, vines, and graffiti. Most of it was what you'd expect. Random names, jokes. But a few symbols were different. Circles with lines through them, stick figures with their eyes scratched out. 1 faded white handprint on the doorframe that looked too small to belong to an adult. We went in, and the first thing that hit us was the smell. It was a stale smell, like mildew and dried herbs. The first room had a broken fireplace full of ash, and what looked like small animal bones. Someone had made patterns out of them. There was writing on the wall scratched into the surface. "She hears you," repeated several times. 1 line had been angrily crossed out. The second room had a broken cot, mold on the walls, and a half-open cabinet with old books inside. They were fallen apart, handwritten, and full of strange symbols in what looked like Latin. There were drawings, too. 1 showed a figure standing in a circle full of teeth. That's around when it started to feel off and not just creepy. More like something was off-center, if that makes sense. We were all kind of spaced out, wandering around different parts of the house. I remember glancing toward the hallway at one point and thinking I saw something moving, just for a split second, like a shadow slipping into one of the rooms. I didn't say anything, because it was probably just Kyle or Rhea walking past, but then Kyle asked if any of us had been in the front room a second ago. I said no. Rhea just looked at him and said, "I thought that was you." We all played it off. The last room was mostly empty, except for a low wooden table in the middle. Wax and bits of feathers were melted into the surface, and a sealed jar sat off to the side. We sure as hell didn't open it. Hanging above the table were a handful of small dolls made of sticks and twine, each with bead eyes. They moved slightly, but we didn't feel a draft. We didn't really stay long. After a few minutes inside, everyone went quiet. Marco said he felt dizzy. Kyle stepped out first, and the rest of us followed. On the way out, I noticed something sitting on the fireplace mantel that hadn't been there when we entered. It was a small wooden doll, maybe 6 inches tall. It appeared to be hand-carved, and it was clean, not rotted like most of the other things. It had string for hair and 2 red beads for eyes. I remember thinking how new it looked compared to everything else. Just before we stepped out of the house, we heard 3 knocks, slow and even from the back wall, or maybe further behind it. Could have been anything, honestly. An animal or the house settling. No one said anything. We just kept walking, and we've never been back. That stretch of woods doesn't show anything unusual on maps, but if you ever hike out past Larkspur and you stumble upon a house that doesn't belong there, I would just keep walking. My husband and I bought our first house 3 months ago. We were excited, nervous, sure, but excited. Now I'm scared to be in my own home after dark. The first time I noticed something was off, we were still unpacking. I was in the bedroom folding clothes, while Ryan was putting together a bookshelf in the living room. It was quiet. Then, clear as day, I heard a child laughing behind me. It wasn't muffled like it came from outside. It sounded like it was right in the hallway. I froze because we don't have kids. We don't even have pets. I walked out into the hall, but there was nothing there. I figured maybe the sound carried in from the street, but the windows were shut. I didn't mention it to Ryan. Over the next week, we both noticed cold spots. I'd be brushing my teeth and feel this sudden chill crawl up my spine, even though the windows were closed and the heater was running. Ryan would be watching TV and say it felt like someone opened a door behind him. The thermostat said 72, but it felt like 50 in certain corners of the house. Then the laughter came back. It's not every night, but when it happens, it's always the same. It's small, light, and playful, like 2 or 3 kids running through the house playing tag. Sometimes it's right above us. Other times it sounds like it's coming from the empty guest room down the hall. It always sounds like it's just out of view, like it's just around the corner. One night, Ryan turned off the TV and said, "Do you hear that?" We sat in silence, and I could tell he was holding his breath. Then we both heard it. Little feet running across the hallway upstairs, fast and light, like bare feet on hard wood. We both just stared at each other. I think that was the moment we stopped pretending we both weren't feeling it. We checked the entire house that night. Every room, every closet, even the attic. There was nothing. No animals and no signs of anyone sneaking in. All the doors were locked and windows secure. We started keeping lights on at night. Not all of them, just enough to not feel alone in the dark. A few nights later, I woke up to what sounded like someone running in circles in the upstairs hallway. It stopped the moment I sat up. Ryan was still asleep somehow. I didn't wake him. I just sat there staring at the door, waiting for the sound to come back. It didn't, but I didn't sleep the rest of the night either. We thought maybe it was old pipes or the house settling. I even called someone to check for rodents. Naturally, they didn't find anything. But it's not just the sounds now. A few nights ago, we were both in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. It was quiet, just the clink of dishes and running water. Then we both heard it, this low, raspy whisper, like it was right between us. It wasn't loud, but you couldn't mistake it. We both stopped and looked at each other. Ryan asked, "Did you say something?" I hadn't. Neither of us could tell what it said, just a few garbled syllables that didn't make sense, like it wasn't meant for us to understand. Ryan swears he saw someone standing at the bottom of the stairs one night. He said it looked like a kid in pajamas. He blinked, but then it was gone. He tried to laugh it off, but he hasn't joked about it since. 2 days ago, I was home alone folding laundry in the guest room. The house was quiet. Then I felt a hand grab the back of my shirt, quick like a kid trying to get my attention. I turned around so fast I almost fell. No one was there, but the closet door, which I know was closed, was now slightly open. I haven't gone back into that room since. We've started avoiding parts of the house. We sleep with the doors locked now, even though it doesn't make any sense to do that. We leave the hallway lights on all night. We keep the TV running even when we're not watching. The silence is worse. I tried asking a neighbor if anyone had mentioned weird stuff about our house before we moved in. She got quiet and said, "No, nothing like that." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. I know how this sounds. I do. I'm not someone who believes in ghosts. I didn't grow up religious. I don't go looking for this kind of thing. But I also can't explain what's happening. It's not just the noises. It's not even the cold. It's the feeling. Sometimes when I'm alone in the kitchen or brushing my hair in the hallway mirror, I get this tight feeling in my chest, like I'm being watched. Not with curiosity, more like disappointment or anger, like something doesn't want us here, like we're in the way. But we can't just leave. We sank everything we had into this house. We can't afford to run. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's a haunting or if we're going crazy from stress. But something is wrong here. I know it, and I can't stop thinking that whatever it is, it was here before us. It's just used to the house in a way we will never be. Has anyone been through something like this? What can I do to make this stop? What can I do to keep this house? I don't know how to start this without sounding dramatic, but I've been keeping this to myself for months, and it's starting to eat at me. I turn 18 next week. I'm supposed to move into my college dorm in 2 more months. Everything should be exciting right now, but all I can think about is how bad I feel about leaving my parents here, because something's wrong with our house. We live in a quiet neighborhood outside of Indianapolis, in a normal, boring 2-story house. Nothing special. I've lived here since I was 6. It's always been a good place to grow up, until a few months ago. I can't point to one big event that started everything. It was little things at first. Doors that were open being closed, finding lights on in rooms I know I didn't touch. We blamed each other. It was easy to write it off as forgetfulness or just being distracted. Then I started waking up at weird hours, 3:17, almost every time. It wasn't from a noise. I'd just wake up, wide-eyed and sweating, like something had jolted me out of a dream I couldn't remember. I'd lie there and listen to the silence. And sometimes, I swear I heard movement downstairs. Light footsteps, the kind you'd expect from someone trying not to wake anyone. I told my parents and my mom laughed it off, said I was nervous about the transition. My dad offered to check the house a few times, but he never found anything. He stopped asking after a while. Neither of them seemed worried. I think they were trying not to be worried, but I was. One night, I was coming out of the bathroom and saw my mom standing in the hallway outside their bedroom, just staring down the stairs. It was dark, and she didn't seem to notice me at first. I asked if she was okay, and she blinked, like I'd pulled her out of a trance. She mumbled something about thinking she heard the cat, but our cat died in January. That was around the same time she brought home this weird painting, some abstract thing, dark smudges and a red shape in the center that looks kind of like an eye, but not quite. She hung it in the hallway downstairs, right across from the den. I didn't like it the moment I saw it, and I still don't. I avoid looking at it directly. There's something weird about it. I can't explain it without sounding like a lunatic, but it feels like it's watching me. Over time, I noticed that things felt creepy in that part of the house. Maybe it was just the layout, or the way the light hit in the afternoons, but the air felt colder down there. Sometimes I get this weird buzzing in my ears when I walked past the den. It's like static, but only for a second, and the shadows always seemed off, like they stretched too far, even when the lights were on. A few weeks ago, I caught my mom wiping dust off the canvas, really gently, like she didn't want to smudge it. She didn't notice me at first, just stood there, tracing her fingers along the frame. She had this look on her face that I didn't recognize. When I asked what she was doing, she blinked like she'd forgotten I was home and said, "It's calming, don't you think?" I didn't answer. I just nodded and kept walking. One night, about a month ago, I was up late finishing a scholarship essay and the house was completely quiet. I heard whispering in the vent near my desk. Not like full voices, but definitely words. Murmuring. I pressed my ear closer and I swear I heard my name. It was soft and oddly intimate. I slept in the car that night. I've brought it up a few times since, but my parents don't want to talk about it anymore. My mom keeps saying I'm projecting anxiety, and my dad jokes that I should write horror movies. But I can tell they're not sleeping well either. My dad has bags under his eyes now. My mom leaves lights on in rooms she's not in. I've spent way too much time online looking into stories about haunted or cursed objects, just trying to find something, some clue that might explain any of this. But nothing I've read really lines up. Not exactly. A lot is more dramatic than what's happening here. More obvious. What's been going on in our house is quieter than that. I leave for school in 13 days. I've packed a little, but it's been slow going. Maybe my parents are right. Maybe I'm just stressed about moving out. Maybe I've let a few weird moments turn into something bigger in my head. Still, I'll feel better once I know they're okay. Look, I've never believed in this kind of thing. Ghosts, hauntings, whatever you want to call it. It always sounded like something people told to scare themselves. But I'm telling you, something happened in that apartment on Kessler Street. Something I still can't explain. Lila and I moved in last fall. The place was a rent-controlled 2-bedroom on the top floor of an old brick building downtown. Built in the 40s. Hardwood floors, old radiators, clawfoot tub, the kind of place you see in black and white photos. A little rough around the edges, but it had character. And in this city, a place like that at that price, we jumped on it. At first it felt like a fresh start. We'd been through a rough patch, lost a pregnancy earlier that year, and this place felt like a reset. The first couple of weeks were quiet. The neighbors kept to themselves, which we didn't mind. It was peaceful, and we slept well. But then little things started happening. The first time I noticed it was one night when I stayed up late watching a movie in the living room. Lila had already gone to bed. Around 1 a.m. I heard this loud thud, like something heavy falling straight down onto the floor. I paused the movie and walked through the apartment, expecting to find a book or a picture frame knocked off a shelf. There was nothing. I even checked the neighbor's hallway through the peephole. It was empty. I didn't mention it to Lila, but a few nights later, she brought it up herself. She shook me awake around 3 a.m., said, "Did you hear that? Something just fell." Same thud. I told her it was probably pipes or something shifting in the walls. This building groans like it has arthritis. She didn't seem convinced, but she let it go. After that, the sound came back. Same time, same sound. Always in the dead of night. Always just one thud. No echoes, no scraping. Like something was dropped, and then silence. We started hearing other things too. Soft knocks on the wall between our bedroom and the hallway. Footsteps, faint and slow, crossing the living room when we were both in bed. One night, the bedroom door creaked open on its own. I told myself it was just a draft. We kept trying to rationalize it. Old building, floorboards settling, radiators knocking. All of that made sense, until the night I saw him. It was a Thursday around 2:30 in the morning. Lila was out cold beside me. I'd gotten up to grab water from the kitchen. The apartment was dark, except for the streetlights glowing through the windows. As I walked past the hallway, our long, narrow hallway, I saw movement. Just for a split second, a man standing at the far end of the hall half turned toward me. Older, maybe mid-60s, wearing a white tank top and slacks. He was balding and his face was blurry in the dark, but I remember the posture, rigid like someone standing at attention, then gone, just like that. I blinked and the hallway was empty. I didn't wake Lila. I told myself I was overtired, maybe still half asleep. But the next morning, Lila asked me something that made my skin crawl. She said, "Did you come to the bedroom door last night and just stand there?" I asked her what she meant. She said she woke up and saw a silhouette in the doorway. Thought it was me, but I never came in. It just stood there for a few seconds and then disappeared. That's when I told her what I saw. We didn't joke about it. We didn't try to explain it away. We just sat there in the kitchen, not saying anything for a long time. That weekend, we started digging. There's this site that aggregates city property records and incident reports. I looked up our building, found out that in 2004, a tenant had died in our apartment. Natural causes. An older man, retired. He lived alone. His name was Charles H. Mendel. According to the records, his body wasn't discovered for almost 2 weeks. Neighbors complained of the smell. He had no family, no next of kin. The city handled the cleanup and eventually leased the unit again. That should have been the end of it. Just a sad, lonely story. But it wasn't. We tried to live with it. The noises kept happening. The thud every few nights. Sometimes it was loud enough to shake the damn windows. The hallway footsteps and cold spots in the living room. Lila started having nightmares. She said they were always the same. She was lying in bed, unable to move, and someone was watching her from the doorway. She'd wake up soaked in sweat, sometimes crying. I told her we could move. She said no, not yet. One night, she finally snapped. It was around 3 in the morning, and the thud came again, this time twice. Then a knock on the bedroom wall. I sat up, and so did she, and I swear to God her face changed. She stood up, walked right into the hallway, and yelled, "Charles, you're dead. You don't live here anymore. Please leave." The silence after that was awful. I got up and stood behind her, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. She just stood there, breathing hard. Then we went back to bed. That night, everything stopped. No more thuds, no more footsteps, not even the creaky pipes. It was like the place went dead. For a few days, we felt better, lighter, like maybe that was all it took, acknowledging him, setting a boundary. But then came the smell. It started faint, like old cigarettes and mildew, then stronger, stale sweat, body odor, something sour. We cleaned everything. We scrubbed the walls, floors, even the air vents. The smell wouldn't go. It was strongest in the hallway, right where I saw him. Lila started spending more nights at her sister's. I couldn't blame her. I started sleeping with the TV on. Something, anything to drown out the stillness. The last thing that happened, the thing that made us leave, was about 3 weeks later. I was home alone. Lila was at her sister's again. I was doing dishes when I heard a voice. It came from the bedroom, low and raspy, like a whisper behind a closed door. I couldn't make out the words, but I know I heard it. I froze in the kitchen, hands still in the sink, trying to convince myself it was the wind or something outside. Then something banged against the bedroom wall, not a thud. This was harder, like a fist. I grabbed my keys and left without even turning off the lights. We were out of the apartment within a week. We found a smaller place, newer, across town. It doesn't have hardwood floors or vintage charm, but it's quiet, and I haven't woken up at 3 a.m. once since we moved in. I don't know what to tell you. I still don't believe in ghosts the way people usually talk about them, but I know what I saw, and I know what I heard, and I know something was wrong with that place. Something old, something sad, something that didn't want to be forgotten. We still drive by Kessler sometimes. The lights are on. Someone else is living there now. I'm not the type of person to post stuff like this. I'm usually the one explaining weird noises with plumbing or old wood. But after a full school year in room 310 of Wren Hall, I don't really know how else to make sense of what's happened. I guess I just want to write it down, mostly for myself. Wren Hall is one of the older dorms on campus. Real wood floors, drafty windows, those heavy old doors that shut too hard. Some people love that kind of thing. My roommate, Marissa, was one of them. She thought it was charming. I thought it just felt heavy. Not scary, but tired. Like the building held a lot more than furniture and history credits. The first time something felt off, it was maybe 10 days into the semester. I was at my desk, finishing some reading late at night, when I felt this sudden cold roll across my back. Not from the window, that was closed, and it wasn't a breeze. It felt like it started behind me and moved past my chair, like someone brushing by, carrying cold air with them. I looked around, and Marissa wasn't there. I got up and felt along the wall. There was nothing. It passed quickly. I didn't think much of it, just old building problems. But it happened again the next week. This time I was brushing my teeth, barefoot on the hardwood floor. I felt cold air at my ankles, but just at my ankles, and it drifted around to the other side of the room before fading. The radiator was working fine. The windows were locked. It made no sense, but I kept brushing my teeth and forgot about it by morning. By October, I had felt it 3 or 4 more times. Always late at night, always moving, not sitting still, always near the closet. We had a shared one built into the wall right near the door. The doors were warped and creaked when you opened them too fast, but otherwise they stayed shut, or at least they used to. One night I woke up to a soft noise, like a coat sleeve brushing against wood. I lay there still, thinking maybe Marissa had gotten up and was rummaging around, but I didn't hear anything else. Just that one sound. In the morning I asked her if she had gotten up, but she said she had slept straight through the night. It wasn't long after that I started noticing things out of the corner of my eye when I was sitting at my desk. Little shifts in the shadow under the door, or the faintest creak like pressure shifting inside. It wasn't dramatic, just barely enough to make me pause and glance up. The overhead light started acting up in midterm season. It didn't flicker exactly, more like it dimmed for a second or two, and then returned to normal. It would do it once, maybe twice, then stay steady the rest of the night. It wasn't every night, just often enough to feel intentional. Once I watched the brightness fade and return, while the desk lamp stayed perfectly normal. We filed a maintenance request. Someone came by and said it was probably the ballast. They swapped the ball, but it kept happening anyway. I didn't say anything to Marissa about the sounds or the cold, and she didn't mention anything either. I didn't want to sound crazy over a draft and some faulty lighting. We were both exhausted with exams coming up. Thanksgiving break came, and Marissa went home for the week. I stayed behind. My family lives out west, and it didn't feel worth the cost to travel for a few days. I thought the peace and quiet would be nice. It wasn't. It wasn't that anything major happened. It just felt like the quiet wasn't actually quiet. Like there was something in the room that didn't want me there alone. The cold spots were stronger that week. I'd walk to the bathroom in the middle of the night and feel a sudden chill start at my chest and wrap around my back as I passed the closet. I started sleeping with music on after that, just enough to have a background noise. Things calmed down in December and stayed quiet through most of spring semester. The light still dimmed sometimes, and the closet door creaked now and then, but it didn't feel as intense. Or maybe I'd just gotten used to it. Then in late April, I brought someone back to the room. It was a guy I'd been seeing named Tyler. Nothing serious. We just came back to hang out after a late dinner. Marissa was gone for the weekend again, so we had the room to ourselves. We were sitting on my bed talking when he suddenly looked up and asked, "Is there a window open?" I said no. "It feels like cold air, but just right here," he said, brushing his hand near his chest and shoulder. I didn't respond right away. Then I said something about the building being weird and we moved on. A few minutes later, we both noticed the lights above us dim, just a little. Then it flicked back to normal. Then the closet creaked, just once. It wasn't loud. The door didn't swing open or anything. It just shifted. like someone inside leaned gently against it for a second. Tyler got real quiet after that. I told him it was probably the heat settling or something like that. He left not long after. I don't blame him. He never mentioned the room again, and I didn't bring it up. Now it's June. Finals are over and Marissa's gone, and I've got one more night here before I move out tomorrow. I'm sitting on my bed now writing this, with the desk lamp on and the closet shut. It's been quiet tonight. I keep thinking about that cold air, the lights, the way the door would shift just enough to notice. I wonder if anyone else ever felt it, if someone before me stayed up late, trying to convince themselves it was nothing, or if something happened here once that never really left. Maybe some rooms just hold on to things